What's up, guys? Iceman here. Welcome to my new YouTube channel. This is Horrors of the North. These are the best bear attack horror stories on YouTube. So like this video, if you will, and let's get into it. The crisp autumn air of Michigan's Upper Peninsula carried the scent of pine and damp earth as Agnes Whitaker trudged along the narrow trail. At 78, she moved with the deliberate caution of someone who'd spent a lifetime in these woods, her gnarled hands gripping a weathered walking stick. Beside her scampered Toby, her faithful Jack Russell Terrier, his white and brown coat a blur of energy as he darted ahead, sniffing at fallen leaves and chasing imaginary squirrels. The wilderness here was vast and unforgiving, dense forests of hemlock and maple stretching for miles, broken only by the occasional rocky outcrop or the distant call of a loon on Lake Superior's shores. Agnes had lived in the nearby town of Moonsing her whole life, retiring to a small cabin after her husband passed. These daily walks with Toby were her ritual, a way to feel connected to the land that had shaped her. Today, the trail wound deeper in the Hiawatha National Forest, where the underbrush grew thick and the sunlight filtered through the dappled patches. Toby barked excitedly at a rustle in the bushes, but Agnes smiled indulgently. "Easy, boy, just a chipmunk." She didn't see the root snaking across the path, hidden beneath a carpet of fallen needles. Her foot caught mid-step, and she pitched forward with a startled gasp. Time slowed as she flailed, her stick flying from her grasp. Her body slammed into the ground, but it was the jagged rock protruding from the earth that did the real damage. A sickening crack echoed through the trees as her skull met the unyielding stone. Pain exploded in her head, a white-hot burst that blurred her vision. Blood trickled warm down her temple, matting her silver hair. She tried to push herself up, but her limbs felt heavy, unresponsive. "Toby," she whispered, her voice weak and trembling. The little dog froze, his ears perked, eyes wide with alarm. He whined, licking at her face, but Agnes could only groan, her world spinning into darkness. Toby paced around her, barking frantically, but when no help came, instinct took over. With a final worried glance, he bolted back the way they'd come, his small legs pumping furiously along the trail. Miles away at the ranger station, perched at the edge of the forest, Officer Harlan Reed sipped his coffee, scanning reports of recent bear sightings. Black bears were common in these parts, but aggressive encounters were rare, usually just trash-raiding nuisances. The door burst open with a yelp, and in tumbled a frantic Jack Russell, covered in burrs and mud, barking incessantly. "What the?" Harlan set down his mug, kneeling as the dog nipped at his boots and tugged at his leg. No collar tag, but the urgency in the animal's eyes was unmistakable. "You lost, pup? Someone in trouble?" Toby spun in circles, dashing toward the door and back, his barks growing more desperate. Harlan grabbed his radio and sidearm, a standard-issue Glock 19, and followed the dog out into the fading light. "This better not be a wild goose chase," he muttered, but his gut told him otherwise. Toby led the way unerringly, pausing only to ensure Harlan kept up. The trail twisted through the woods, the air growing cooler as dusk approached. Harlan's boots crunched over leaves, his mind racing through possibilities. A hiker with a twisted ankle, maybe a lost child? But the dog's single-minded determination suggested something worse. After what felt like an eternity, nearly 2 miles by Harlan's count, They crested a small rise. A low, guttural growl froze him in place. Toby whimpered, hackles raised, but didn't advance. There, in a small clearing, lay Agnes, or what was left of her fragile form. A massive black bear, easily 400 pounds, hunched over her body, its fur matted with blood. The beast had been drawn by the scent of her injury, the fresh wound, an irresistible lure in the wild. Agnes was alive, barely. Her eyes fluttered open, wide with terror, as the bear's powerful jaws clamped around her skull. Blood streamed from the initial crack, but now the animal was savaging her further, its teeth sinking into the soft flesh of her scalp. She let out a feeble, gurgling scream, her hands twitching uselessly at her sides. The bear shook its head violently, trying to wrench her head free from her neck, muscles ripping under its dark pelt. Sinew and skin tore with wet, ripping sounds, exposing glimpses of bone and tendon. Agnes's body convulsed, her legs kicking weakly in the dirt as the bear's claws raked deep gashes across her chest and abdomen, spilling loops of intestines onto the ground. The air reeked of copper and musk, the brutal symphony of growls and her muffled cries echoing through the trees. Harlan's stomach churned. "Jesus Christ," he whispered, drawing his pistol. Toby barked wildly, but stayed back. The officer shouted, "Hey, get off her!" waving his arms to distract the beast. The bear paused, lifting its blood-smeared muzzle to glare at him with beady eyes. But it didn't release its grip. Instead, it redoubled its efforts, jaws grinding down with bone-crushing force. Agnes's neck stretched grotesquely, vertebrae popping as the head began to detach, skin peeling like an old wallpaper, blood spraying in arcs. Harlan fired. The first shot cracked through the air, slamming into the bear's shoulder. The animal roared, staggering, but not letting go. He fired again and again, bullets punching into its flank, its chest, sending fur and flesh flying. The bear lurched, its body shuddering, but it yanked harder, the woman's head tearing free with a final, horrific snap. Spinal fluid and blood poured from the ragged stump of her neck. In the chaos, one stray bullet, Harlan's fourth or fifth, he couldn't tell, veered off course, striking Agnes square in the forehead. Her eyes, locked in agony, went blank instantly. Mercy, perhaps, in the midst of this horror. She slumped, lifeless, her decapitated body twitching once before going still. The bear, riddled with holes, let out a final bellow and collapsed atop her mangled carcass, its massive weight crushing what remained. Blood poured beneath them, soaking into the earth. Harlan lowered his smoking gun, hands shaking, as Toby approached cautiously, whining at the sight of his mistress. The ranger station's radio crackled to life on his belt, but he could only stare at the scene, the wilderness suddenly feeling infinitely more savage. In the days that followed, the story made local headlines. A tragic incident turned nightmare. Harlan was cleared of wrongdoing, the stray bullet deemed unavoidable in the heat of the moment. Toby was adopted by a sympathetic family, but he never quite lost that haunted look. And in the deep woods of Upper Michigan, the bears roamed on, indifferent to the fragile lives that wandered in their domain.